Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I am so glad to have you here tonight. First off, thank you, and thank you for, not only watching the live casts live, like many of my great fans in the comment sections, but, the rewatches that occur throughout the week. Honestly, I truly appreciate it. Uh, you know, I'm so happy you're enjoying this OP content. I really try to make content that I would enjoy. And, if anybody knows me, I'm sure they know that I've listened to my own podcast and enjoyed some things. But it's also inspired my own mind when I listen to my own podcasts, as I hope it does to all of you when you listen at home or watch at home. So thank you again. Please continue watching, subscribe, like, share with all your OP friends. There's lots of new people entering the game. So thank you, thank you, thank you. This is the Overpower Mountain Livecast, and I am your host, Marcel, the greatest Overpower player ever. We have an episode for you. But as anybody knows in my lives, I'd like to continue the new live by ending the old live. So many of you have, entered the draws that I have and, filled out the contests and done what you had to do. And I have to say, this week there was a lot of people who entered. But I did give you the bonus chance to get a second draw in there as well. So I hope at the end of the day, you all answered the comment properly and put in the secondary effect for the draw. So do not stall things out, because that's not really what we're all here for. See-through glass, because I ain't cheating. Popping like Boggle. Here we go, friends. Here we go. Excitement. And the winner is... Sorry, I just want to put that down. We have Skittle Daddy 5439. Congratulations, Skittle Daddy 5439. I will be contacting you and sending out that, my friends. Beautiful Leonidas. New York Comic Con. It's in double casing. I'm ready to send it already, so I'm not going to pull it out. But how gorgeous is that? I love that they have just taken away the actual naming of everything. I know what it is. I don't need a name of it. It's cool enough the Wolverine Fighting 6 has it on it, but this is just top level. Very well thought out, guys. I look forward to collecting all of the secondary skins, but we will get to that in a second. Congratulations, Skittle Daddy 5439, I think. Not to be confused with 5438. If there's a second Skittle Daddy watching. So congrats. I'll send it to you very, very shortly. Okay. Things are moving quickly in the Overpower land, aren't they? I mean, what are we doing here, friends? Let's start the first segment off of the show. Overpower. Overpower news. All right, friends. So, exciting first segment coming at you right now. We got all the news from the last week. There's a lot to cover, so I'm going to kind of go through it relatively quick. A lot of you have already seen a few of the things, so I'm not going to really sort of push on things. Just pick out the finer points that all of you at home need to know, because I promised you that I would always give it to you before things run out, I guess. So, okay, Overpower news. Last week, lots of things covered. First off, Kickstarter is closed, friends. Kickstarter is closed. You can no longer add to the Kickstarter. But the survey says that they've been sent out apparently. So apparently you should have your survey in your email box that you had registered. Now, I have a unique story because basically what happened in my situation is I actually logged in to Kickstarter through my Apple ID. I don't know if anybody else out there did this in the Overpower land, but essentially what happened to me is I did not get an email. I was all panicked, ready to freak out. But then what I did is I just relogged back into Kickstarter. It did actually show me my survey in Kickstarter to do. I had bought the one, I believe, with 8 starter decks and 3 booster boxes, something along those lines, with a few add-ons, obviously, as well. So the situation that happened for me was obviously, I just entered in my home address, getting ready, and then I was confused at first with the starter deck choices. So I basically realized very quickly that when it actually said in the Kickstarter, you get 8 starter decks with that tier level, you actually could choose any ones you wanted. Joe actually confirmed this in the town hall himself through wordage. And so essentially, like, you could have picked all 8 of them as time resistance or, I don't have that right, time detective, or the resistance or, ungodly powers. I actually ended up just choosing one of each, times 2 all the way through. I can imagine a lot of other people did this sort of idea, but I think you could have ultimately just chose any one you wanted throughout that. So I know they are dealing with some survey questions. There are some survey choices, but I just wanted to sort of give that sort of run through in terms of the starter deck idea and what was going on there. Now, in terms of there as well, so that was your choice. Now, he did mention in the town hall as well that it was 5 business days. Now, remember, business days. So that does not include the weekend that had just occurred between their town hall and, my podcast right now. So essentially, 5 business days means you are trying to get your survey in by Thursday, Friday, depending on which day they were counting it as the first day. So get that survey in quickly. He did say 5 business days. Now, he mentioned this for a reason. He actually said that you will be getting wave 1 delivery if you actually send in your survey within 5 business days. Now, this means that they are hopefully promising delivery pre the first NAOL tournaments. Now, we're going to get into that in a second, but essentially, you're looking to get this in by, Friday the 30th to be in this wave 1 pre-first tourney release. He did mention that if you do not do that within the 5 business days, that you will be in wave 2. Now, I kind of was trying to read between the lines what that meant, but essentially he did say that, you're probably going to get your cards after the first tournament. So I would imagine, first cards before the first tournament are probably going to arrive maybe like mid-April. For the first wave, roughly, if I'm gauging things right. And then for the second wave, you're probably not going to receive them until about May, based off what roughly the verbiage that I got through that. So, also with my early bird choice, it didn't actually give me a choice on there. So hopefully I get it. If not, I'm sure I can bug them for it ultimately. The last few tidbits I did get out of there as well is that there will be 4 regionals. Friends, 4 regionals. Now, this is, of course, for their modern tournament format. Now, 4 regionals, I don't know where they're going to be. I imagine they'll choose one on each corner of, the greater United States of America. $20,000. That's, $20,000. Now, I couldn't really understand whether he was saying it's, $20,000 collectively for the regionals, but I believe that's probably what he was implying. For regionals, $20,000, that's $5,000 in prize pool money, per regional. And he did say that there would be, that much, if not more, for the national. So, again, not knowing if he's referencing it'll be 20,000 for the national or so on, or just 5,000 plus for the national. So Modern Overpower is going to have quite a hefty prize pool that I imagine a lot of people are going to sort of shoot for next year. I know a lot of people in the grand scheme right now are playing Overpower daily. I wouldn't call them Overpower professionals, but it's probably as close as you can get to it. These people are nonstop playing Overpower, and I hope you are out there as well. And, obviously you're watching the podcast as I'm speaking to you and, trying to learn your best. But playing really is the ultimate experience. And I can tell you there have been times, leading up to tournaments that, you know, uh, without horrible word punage, like I've had to play Overpower against myself, and I've basically built two decks and sort of played a game against myself in that mannerism. So, play out there. That's really the best way you're going to get the experience because these nationals are worth big money and regionals. So collectively, you're looking roughly at about 25,000 plus prize pool. If there were any issues with your Lazarus survey or so on, they did actually give you an issue for a contact issue if there are any issues. So office at lazarusrising.games. Contact them if there's any issues in that regard. So, in other news, we have the Champ of Champs coming up. Yeah, that's right. The Champ of Champs tournament coming up in Columbus, Ohio, run by Doug Sims. A lot of the bests are going to be there. This is a unique tournament that they have on Friday, February 21st. Is actually like a qualifier, almost like the nationals of old, where you had to show up if you hadn't made it in through a regional or another way to get into the tournament. So February 21st on the Friday, they are holding a get into the next day kind of tournament. So show up to that with your best deck and see what you got. Now, I am telling you about this tournament for a reason, so there is a lead up. Of course, this is in the news section, so I want you to know about the latest tournaments. So on the Saturday following that, it is a 16-player Champ of Champs tournament, invitation only, or of course getting in on the qualifier the day before, and following as well at the same time a Rest of Us tournament for anybody else that is around. The tournament will be played with NAOL 2024 rules, and the Mulligan soft launch is happening. So the Mulligan rule is a new rule that is happening in Overpower. I'm going to quickly just chat about it now because you may as well learn about it from me. So the Mulligan rule, which you may have already started to break down through the rules to play guide through LRG, is actually a rule they implemented. We'll get into that in a second. It's a rule they implemented where the player who goes second in the first battle is allowed to replace one duplicate. Now, I will repeat that. The player who goes second in the first battle is able to replace a duplicate card, only one, from their initial opening hand. Unique rule, I don't know necessarily. Maybe we'll reserve our thoughts No, we won't reserve any thoughts. We're not going to do that right now. I'm not a huge fan of this. I think it's going to be incredibly beneficial to start going second in the game of Overpower, replacing a dupe and having the ability to maybe even build a deck into leaning in towards that concept and always wanting to go second. Is just one of those things where I think ultimately I'm not sure about it, but there have been other things in the game of Overpower that have changed that I thought, oh, that's not for the best of the game, and then ultimately actually turned out to be really good for the game. So I will not, push judgment until I actually have enough games under my belt to truly make such a real opinion. So not a fan of the initial thought concept of it, but we will have to see as I sort of put it in through playtesting and how we're sort of, going to meld it into the new game of Overpower. But that is live in the Champ of Champs. Now, this is what I'll say. There was a spoiler drop. And, I'm a bit of a detective when it comes to Overpower and reading between the lines and watching podcasts and sort of thinking and seeing what people are doing. Doug Sims, the, Champ of Champs founder, will let out a little bit of a spoiler during, one of his podcasts, and he ultimately said that LRG will be providing, possibly, hmm, a promo for Champ of Champs and going to this tournament. So another big reason to potentially go there. This is interesting because I had thought they were actually done promos until the actual game had been released, and you would get to sort of get it through, your card portal or your player portal. So this is really unique to me. Is it going to be a modern spoiler, or is it going to be a modern promo? Is it going to be a legacy promo? I'm really curious to see. It's going to be clearly live for one of the tournament scenes, either being modern or the NAOL for 2025. So it's really exciting to see this at Champ of Champs. I hope it is true and isn't just happenstance news. But, obviously we'll have to show up to Champ of Champs to find out whether or not that was, me being a good Sherlock Holmes or, a Watson. So with that being said, we're getting close here on the news. I want to keep pushing through because, we have a lot. What? Uh-oh. Uh-oh, friends. Oh yeah, we got it again. We got breaking news. You know, this news segment was already pushing a little bit long, but we're going to get through this. I have Eddie Brock with me he's at NAOL LRG headquarters. Wait, he has NAOL and LRG headquarters bugged. Oh wow, he's getting information breaking news from them. Oh, they're talking right now. MOE and Marvels will be live. Yes, MOE and Marvels will be live sets in the upcoming NAOL season. What does this mean? That means all sets, including Marvels, MOE, and the LRG Premier set, will be live for the NAOL tournament scene this year. This is breaking news, friends. Wow, think of all the combos that can occur now between the new LRG, the MOE, the Marvels, battle sites. This is just going to be a deck builder's dream come true, let alone competing in another sort of modern format as well for large money prizes. This is going to be the season to remember, 2025. I told you, friends, here we go. Wow. Thank you so much, Eddie Brock. I appreciate that. Please keep me updated with any other breaking news. Um, what an exciting year for deck building this will be. There's so much choice to cover with these thoughts. I think we're just going to have to do that over a future episode, obviously, because that's not what we're here for today. So, lastly, on a different note, I just want to end this new segment saying that we lost a fellow OP player, John Ellis. Great person. He was a friend of mine. He was big in the Toronto OverPower group. He did pass away, and I have to say, he was a kind soul. He was a fierce player. Um, I hope you no longer get dupes up there, my friend. Nothing but full hands. Um, I think this is a moment to remember that this is an awesome game that we play. And it affords us moments to either sit down and play with friends through online or at home or, through the special times we get to get together and have tournaments. So I think in these moments, we need to just remember what this game brings to us, the happiness, the joy, and, just remember all the great players that, sadly we've lost, John Ellis being one of them. Um, you truly do actually never know um, when it's going to be your last Overpower game that you're going to play. So, play that last Overpower game or every Overpower game with no regrets and, push through. You'll be missed, John Ellis, honestly. Okay, and finally, in the news section, corrections from last week. Valhalla 5, the NAOL tournament, will not actually be in Orlando or Vegas. It will actually be voted on in a top 5 city. I believe you can go to the NAOL Facebook group right now. There is voting going on. Stay tuned for more info. And that's the news. Overpower, overpower, beep, 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 beep. Overpower news. Join again next week and we will fill you in again with what's happened. Trust me, there will be a lot. I promise you that. So, you don't just tune in for the news, my friends. You tune in for the talk. And we need to truly start getting to the overpower talk because I think I've put a couple good ones forward for you in the first few live casts that I've done, and I'm purposely doing this. Obviously, I want the live casts to go off with a big bang, and I want you to be able to rewatch these episodes for the sake that as you rewatch an episode, and you just listening to overpower thoughts and overpower mind frames, so much can go on in your mind in terms of, future decks and deck building and just combos and just even in general gameplay. You don't always have to be playing, but if you're thinking overpower, a lot of the times you can sort of maneuver through things. My OP talk this week is playing like a pro. I just mentioned to you about, people playing, daily, weekly, if not, twice a day, so on. We even see, new podcasts or live casts going up with, new players joining the game. I can tell you personally that every day there are new players just reaching out or subscribing or watching the videos and just making comments to me that they're happy just to be back in this game. So I can tell you that in the next little while, the overpower game is really, really going to escalate in terms of, both player pool and talent. And I can say that just from the sake that, obviously all of you are, gaining so much knowledge weekly through me and, other sources. And I hope you're playing out there as well and trying to adapt that knowledge to your own gameplay. But I will say that, playing like a pro, when I first did this podcast, I put up an episode about going to a tournament, what to expect. I've put out basic gameplay. I've put out things like that where, there's basic thoughts about the game. And I always want to give you elevated thoughts or next level thinking when you're coming to Overpower Mountain. We're all trying to climb the mountain. We all want to get to the top where that beautiful Overpower gem is at the top of the Overpower Mountain. So I think when you're playing like a pro, or a lot of the people out there, you watch the games on YouTube, and you see people doing things in the match, and you're just like, I don't really understand what he's doing or she. And you continuously see this, especially with like certain top tier players. And I think I'm going to go through a lot of like the mannerisms that happen, as a top tier player myself, obviously. We there's a lot of things I do, and I'm kind of gonna run through this checklist with you about like when I sit across the table from you, and we sit down at a tournament, we say our few hellos, and then I go in fierce mode, and when I turn on that like it's over mode, yeah, we're joshing, yeah, we're having fun, but I'm here to win at that point in time. And there's a couple things I'll be doing. We'll be, pile shuffling or, chit-chatting. But a lot of people will lay their deck out, as that's occurring and, continue shuffling, chit-chatting. Well, whatever we're saying, I'm not even paying attention to anymore. That's just trivial conversation at that point in time. Sorry if people have divulged some, personal things to me in those moments, because I really am not paying attention. Because the second you lay out, your characters, your home base, your battle site, your missions, I'm on. I'm on. Like, this is what you have to do to sort of reach that next level that you're looking to in your overpower game. So, you sit down across from an opponent and you do your chit chat, and then it's like, you do your shuffling and you're about to draw your first hand and you're looking across the table. Well, the first thing you're looking at obviously is their characters, right? You're looking at, what 8 characters they're running, what negate characters they're running. Um, but then you have to always turn it back and self actualize and say, what is my deck trying to do? And if that's the question, which one of his characters stops that or hurts that the most, or can somehow, like put a falter in my plans? This seems such a basic idea, but a lot of people don't actually take this second before a game and go, okay, my deck is a teamwork deck. Okay, I'm looking across at a character that has a DB special, Fairchild. I'm going to kill that character so that my teamworks can go through much more effortlessly. I'm playing a draw deck. You have a negate character. I'm going to go after your negate character because I want to make sure my deck can do what it does. So having this thought to yourself and actually saying in your mind these sort of thoughts is a really great way to start a game, especially when it comes to characters. What big cards do I need to sort of keep an eye out for with his big characters? This is the secondary question. So now not only is like, well, what is my deck trying to do and what do I have to do to their characters to make that happen? But what characters are they running and what big specials now do I have to sort of like hold in the memory bank and, wait for them to come, or, be prepared for them until you do see them. The last thing you want to do is be playing against Adam Warlock and, God forbid, you're not thinking about his 2 massive 1 per decks of, opponent discard 3 cards, or Soul Gem, where it's only Adam Warlock and 1 character get to, attack or defend. Like, these are moments where you forget about these cards, and the next thing you know, the game is over, right? Like, these moments can just ultimately change a game. Um, you know, Remembering cards like that is probably the biggest advantage you'll always get in Overpower. Just knowing the card pool, which is going to be a little bit harder as we move along because, 41 new characters and, 6 specials each. So that's a big card pool to remember and kind of, push into your already sort of full Overpower brain. But looking at their characters and just sort of like thinking, what is my path to victory here with all of those basic questions that I gave you there, is probably a good first start. And it's obviously your first start because you're looking at their characters. I think the next start you do after the character approach, or at least I do, is I look at their home base. Home bases back in the day used to be something inconsequential. You wouldn't even look at them, you wouldn't even think about them. Now, and from what I can garner moving forward, these home bases can change a game. I'm hearing that characters now have specials that bounce off of the actual home bases in terms of recycling things back in. Or, you have ones like Baker Street, which you can look at a hand and, or Sklepion, where you can, draw a card from a remove. Like these home bases, these moments that can happen from these home bases, whether it be like a large attack you weren't expecting from a Drax Armory, or an Asclepion remove that you just didn't totally register in your mind that, oh yeah, not only does he remove that and now he's harder to kill, but now he gets to draw a card and possibly attack. So it's the card advantage moment that just like changes the moment of the battle. And it's just sometimes it's incredibly hard to sort of like have these moments happen and just come back from that. And it can just tilt you to even like losing the rest of the game very quickly through these quick moments. You know, Battle sites would be probably the toughest thing I think that has entered the game in a long time. When it comes to battle sites,
there's a lot of guesswork. You have to make an assumption of cards that are in the battle site based off the character lineup, as well as based off commonly used OPDs in that battle site. Does the team actually give you a clue? Do you see maybe like a lock off mechanic in the team that the OPD might be a lock off style OPD, or do you sense like a draw style mechanic and the OPD is probably a draw three or something along those lines? Battle sites are one of those enigmas. I know with the popular battle sites, you can pretty much, guess work 16 to 18 cards, even though, they're only running around 13 of those. But you can kind of say, like, it might be in this 18 card range. And sort of, again, understanding that when you're looking across the table at someone's battle site, anticipating, knowing that when I look across the site and you see Nightcrawler on the site, the DZ's coming. It is coming. It could be hand one, could be hand two, could be hand seven. That DZ is coming. And I can't express to you, and you watch even games, that happen on YouTube, and you see the moment where it's like rounds, battle six or something. And even good players, they just forget about these, like either like bomb OPDs, big boy cards out of the battle site, or like these DZs or something like that, an AX or something. And it's just like it hits like a ton of bricks. And it's all because the person just flat out wasn't thinking it could even happen. You know, that's how much you have to understand, like looking at battle sites, and you're gauging so much information in such a short amount of time. You will often actually see a lot of players go, can I see your battle site, and just sort of look at all the characters quickly, and then you're garnering through six specials each. You're thinking about where's the AD, where's the AO, where's the you know on and on and on. You're thinking about where are all these things. That's what you're doing when you're already looking across the table at a battle site, let alone, the full gelling of the team. These are all things you're thinking about and questions you're asking yourself immediately. The last thing you're looking at when you're looking across the table, or I'm looking at when I look at an opponent, is I'm looking at their missions. You know, Again, this is very similar or akin to the battle site conversation I just had, where I'm looking at the missions, but what I'm doing when I'm looking at the missions is I'm already analyzing what mission set would I use. I'm looking at the team. Is it a no icon style of mission? No energy icon. Look over at the team. Is he playing an energy team? Well, he's playing an energy team, so it's not going to have no energy icon in there. Or he's playing a team that has all big energy attacks. He's obviously not playing no energy icon. But you can just understand, knowing that's coming, anticipating when the event is coming is the most crucial thing. You have things like the kill card, knowing what character you're going to kill off before, looking over and seeing the crossing, or whatever the crazy DC one is that nobody really ever plays when they play the kill card. But again, bigger player pool, all of a sudden you're going to start seeing it just because I said that. I promise you that. But you look over and you see the crossing, and then you're like, okay, I get it. You're going to kill somebody. I'm going to kill somebody. I better get ready for that moment, and playing towards that. Now, obviously, it can happen in the first battle. Next thing you know, you're just like, well, that's, horrible moment of time, and you just got to play through it. And those moments come sometimes in the worst situations. I remember being in Boston, and I was in a semifinal game, and my deck was just on fire. I thought, this is my tournament. It's not even a question. I got this. Kill card first round. And I was mentally prepared for it. It is a question obviously I ask myself when I'm deck building, but it rattled me. It was the right moment, the right time, long day, and I put my best foot forward after that, but it was just an incredibly uphill battle in that situation. So being ready, anticipating things, obviously, if you can, is obviously a great scenario. Understanding that if you look across and you see sort of like an anti-teamwork style, the DC one that only lets you play strength teamworks, uh, or and then they might pair it up, of course, with the any mission that's no teamworks as well. You can never know that one's coming or any of the any missions, but if you start to sense that they're, a monocolored deck and they're not going to be running a lot of teamworks, you can start to anticipate that these sort of things are going to be headed your way. So again, you can even see things like, no specials. You can garner the sense that that's going to come towards you. And, again, you can't really play too much towards something like that, but you can always be ready for it mentally. The last thing you ever want to do is, you're in a very close, tight game and a hand comes up and event no icon, and you just weren't even thinking it could come, and you could have ventured for the win in the last hand, but you were like, oh, I don't want to push it one or two more because I think I have the game right now, and you just weren't thinking of that event, and next thing you know, game over, right? So know what to expect and don't forget it's coming. Sometimes you got to go knowing your event is coming. And that's both ways. You should know when to concede a battle because your events are coming and your deck is obviously geared and played towards it. Often there are moments, if you watch my games online, you'll see there are moments I concede and people are just like, oh, that's a weird place to concede. But it's like, I'm conceding knowing that in either the next hand or the hand following, my event's about to come up and that's just going to change the game. So knowing when to fold them is truly a phenomenal, trait to have, and does come a lot with experience, but often just ask yourself the question, what do I have to gain from staying in this battle? And then you can usually generally answer the question for yourself. I've often talked myself into staying in battles I shouldn't have. One very famous one you can even watch online, a moment of pure example of what I'm referencing, is I was playing in a tournament and my big OPD out of my battle site was Kingpin draw 3. Okay, that was my big OPD, and I'm in the middle of the game. I'm ahead in the game. I'm actually in a very advantageous spot in the game. I get my third Kingpin in a weird dupe scenario. So I have one Kingpin left. I don't have any more in my deck. And I have, I think, almost every Kingpin card left under my battle site. I don't have a good hand. I should not stay in this hand. I should totally be out of the hand. And I talk myself in. I'm just going to stay in this hand and I'm just going to draw 3 right away. Knowing in my mind, I know it's going to get negated. But I talk myself into believing this moment is a great moment and great idea. If it pops off, oh, maybe I can stay in the hand. If it doesn't, I can just run away. I got a few defensive cards, right? Well, there are moments and looking across a table and knowing what a character has. I totally omitted a card out of my mind. I totally omitted a thought that it could actually come in that particular hand. And the next thing you know, the opponent did a juggernaut raise on me. And not only I was first, so I tried to draw 3, negated, played a card, defended, played a card, defended. I had a Beyonder in my hand, but I was playing a battle site with no negate. I had a Beyonder in my hand. I'm like, it doesn't matter what card he has, I can defend it. And the raise hits. I lose the game. Now, if you actually watch the game, I still have a shot here, a shot there. But that's because I'm the great one. In a moment like that, it tilted me. That was incredibly hard to even play the rest of that game, you know. So a moment like that, letting that just omit out of my mind that like, oh, if that hits, that's devastating. And trust me when I say I've played enough Overpower games to say, you know, if that last card in your hand is a 10, you win. And the amount of times I tell you an opponent has gone, well, here's a 10, I win. It just happens more than you can contemplate. So always being ready, always being prepared is the only way you're going to truly sort of start to elevate your game. And you can't be prepared and ready for everything. You know, there are moments where it's just like they have 3 big boy cards and you have 2 negates, and you got to choose wisely about what you ultimately get to do in that battle. But usually there is a path to victory. All of that I just mentioned there happens before you even draw your first hand, or before I draw my first hand. So before I draw my first hand, I've done all of that calculation. I've done calculus. Like I'm talking it's Beautiful Mind, Russell Crowe, you know, I've done it all. And that's before I've even drawn the first 8 cards. That's where you need to get your mind to when you want to start elevating your game and becoming a overpower professional and climbing the mountain. Now, I'm not going to just completely stop there because we haven't even drawn a hand. So how can I be a pro when I'm just, you know, haven't even drawn a hand? I haven't even played yet. Now, the next things I talk about though is not necessarily what to do. It's just little tidbits to sort of keep an eye out for when you're playing Overpower, especially in tournament formats. When you're in hand, counting cards, you know, as I just aforementioned, you know, dare I say, you know, the Hoffman Rain Man or the Russell Crowe Beautiful Mind. Counting cards, you see it often when you're watching games online. You'll see opponent, how many, 1, 2, 3. You know, and if you could hear the audio, they're literally counting like that, like 1, 2, 3. And then the next question is exactly what I just put in, you know, my header for the show. How many cards in your hand? How many cards in your hand? You will be asked this question a lot when you play Overpower. How many cards in your hand? How many cards in your hand? This is where I think Overpower gets to a deeper level. And I'm going to give you probably the big goat moment of the show here. When you're counting cards, why are you counting cards? You know, a lot of people count cards because each card is an action, you know, and one action provides, you know, either an offense or a defense for your team. So obviously, you know, great to have an additional card than your opponent. But when you start to elevate your game, you start to understand that what is the average action worth in my deck, whether it be a defense or an offense? What does it provide? What's the X venture? What's the medium number that's in my deck? Now, people are like, okay, don't get lost just right now, okay? Focus for a second. I'm referencing you have 8 cards, I have 8 cards. If I know that the average card in my deck is worth 4 plus, and I look across the table and I see a 1 or a 2 or a 3, or dare I say multiples of those, I immediately can go, okay, I'm already an action up based off my venture total. And this is a scenario where now you can start to mathematically play out hands as opposed to just basing it off cards and actions. Now, Obviously, having extra cards than your opponent is always beneficial to you, but there are scenarios where you have to do the thinking, and especially from what I spoke about pre game, before you even draw your first hand, you have to do all the thinking about all the card manipulation that can occur in a battle and in a whole entire game. From power leeches to, avoid draws to you know, opponent discard threes. Like, these are the sort of things I'm talking about. Now, when the value of every card in your deck is high, you can start to truly manipulate games. Now, this was actually one of the original reasons, we spoke. Actually, it was a great question in the last episode where somebody said, do I put a 1 power card in my deck? And, we spoke about the reasons why you possibly would. And, I didn't overly get into the reasons why I wouldn't. And one of the original reasons why I removed the 1 from my deck was this exact topic that we're talking about. I came upon the epiphany that if the average card in my deck is worth the value of 4, anytime I see a 1, 2, or 3 on the opposing side of the table, I'm already up in this round, especially if we're on even cards. I remember being in a tournament in Canada, just to give you a further example, and the opponent was playing Marrow. And Marrow has a card, and Green Goblin actually has it now in MOE as well, where it is avoid 1 attack of 1 to 4 and draw a card. I remember I had already played my 1/3 that I had in that deck at that particular time, and I believe I had already played my 2/4s. And even if I hadn't, I obviously would have paired that 4 up with the teamwork. So when I saw that opponent not only place that card on that character, I said, wow, my opponent might have more than one of those in their deck. They just locked up that placing spot of that special on that character. And that's a dead card. That is an actual dead card against the rest of my deck. I know the rest of my deck. And there's not a card in there, unless we get all the way to power back, and we're not going to get there, that you can actually defend and draw with that card. So I internally just started laughing because they just placed this dead card, which normally is a phenomenal like swing card in a battle. But because I had sort of elevated the X in my deck per card venture, that card actually became a discard in that moment in time. So, you know, the game of Overpower is based off card advantage, but there are other elements to the card advantage and how you can sort of elevate your game past, a moment of just being down a card or so on. Big advantage this year for me that happened, it obviously helped that I was in a scenario where I was working with one of my very good friends on decks, and, we were helping each other work through things. And, one of the big advantages that came with Wundagore Mountain that we both discovered was that there was 2 sort of card manipulation factors in there. And, you know, I feel wary because, I don't want to give away any trade secrets in this moment. But one of the big factors and sort of one of the big, I guess, advantages that occurred through using this Wundagore Mountain and having the ability, and the cards I'm referencing are the Colossus cards. Avoid 1 special, draw a card, and discard 3 cards from your opponent. So one of the advantages that truly came in this scenario was my opponents were not doing what I told you to do. They were not looking they were looking at my team. They were thinking about everything that's on my deck, team-wise. They thought about the event that I might play. And then they looked at my battle site and they said, and some of them even knew those cards were in there. But then when the battles came to play, it's as if they just had some sort of amnesia moment. And there would be scenarios where, we would be even on cards, and they would venture into me a card or, 2. Or dare I even say a scenario where, they would venture three, you venture one because you're down a card, and then they venture three and even it up. Next thing they know, they don't realize I have a Colossus and a Beyonder in my hand, and you happen to have no negate. I'm going to make you drop three from your hand, so now I'm up three cards, well, two cards technically. And then at the first special you throw, I'm going to use Beyonder and I'm going to avoid draw. The swing that just happened in that round is phenomenal. And I'm just trying to sort of pop it in your mind that that can happen any battle, anytime, right? Having those two activators is not the craziest thing to have in any specific battle. So obviously, people just don't think about those moments. There's another scenario where I was heavily playing draw decks. Again, my man right there. And I was playing a very, very good player, like a top tier player. And it was a big tournament. I think it was actually the first OP Cup, the tournament that, won the first ring on. And we were playing in the game, and he's sitting there, and he's a card up on me. And he looks over and he's like, oh, I don't want to. I know who you are. I don't want to do it. Okay, I'm going to go three. I had already gone one because I was first. I ventured one. He ventures three. He goes, I shouldn't do that. I just shouldn't give you the card. He was right. He should always have kept that advantage, especially against, like the best player in the world. You always got to keep that advantage. Please give me the cards when we are actually playing against each other. Do not listen to this podcast right now. Please venture 3, 4. I just give me the card. Trust me, it's not the card that I'm going to need. Back to the story. So he ventures 3. First thing I draw, the kingpin right off the top. What happens? Well, he just ventured 3. I ventured 1. It's the first round of the game. Well, obviously I'm going to get to draw 3. He happened to not be playing any negate characters. Crazy move to be drawing into me. But I draw 3. He loses that battle. 3 missions go down to the bottom. That's almost the game right there. If anybody knows Overpower, again, like I talked to you, you're getting about 6 hands in a full game. That's a scenario where, losing 3 missions in the first hand, that's probably, not your own nail in the coffin, but it's a scenario where it could actually get to that. So always anticipating, keeping your advantage when you have it. If you have something along those lines yourself, you could push the advantage. I've heard hilarious stories of, discard 3, negate, discard 3, negate, Dazzler, absorb sound right after. So it's just like these big boy cards popping off, and people just, aren't ready for the full measure of it. Be ready, be prepared. Don't venture into somebody who has pocket aces. Don't push it if you're not 100% sure yourself. Always try to keep those incremental advantages if you can, unless you're playing against me, and then push it because, I don't have it. I promise you, you're going to win. So, venturing. I'm really trying to figure out a great way to sort of push venture knowledge towards you. This is not the podcast for it. We've covered a lot already. We've covered a lot of great thoughts. When venturing, remember the story I just told you. Pushing venture at big moments, make sure you have it. Don't push venture too much on bluffs. I've done it in the past. It doesn't often pay off. So look for those moments, keep it tight, keep it right when you're venturing, but, don't get in those scenarios where you push into someone's pocket aces and they're just waiting for you to do it. There was so many times this year I ventured 1 with great hands, all because I just wanted you to stay in the round because you had 2 on the line, I had 1, and the next thing you know, I have a character of yours dead and, now I can concede. So think of those moments. Just because I ventured 1 doesn't mean I'm weak and just want to concede before the battle. What am I going to do? What does my deck do? What does your deck do? so many deep thoughts that you have to sort of put into these sort of situations and to get up to these, you know, levels on the mountain. So in conclusion, remember everything. Remember your opponent's discards. You remember your discards. You remember what's in your deck. You anticipate what's in their deck. You know, take your time when you're playing in a game, especially in these big tournaments. You know, these aren't kitchen table games. These aren't, just quick decisions, moments like that. I actually had a bunch of players message me that actually just played in the last regional, and they said, "Oh, I just made this decision, and even though I told myself it wasn't the right decision, I just made the decision anyways." And because I'm so used to playing in this fashion, and it's like, take that second. Is it the best decision? You know, I'm not saying to like stall or take a long time, but a lot of these questions, you have to ask yourself and continually ask them every battle, reminding yourself, I haven't seen that card yet. I haven't seen that. I gotta anticipate it. Back in the day when Overpower first started, you worried about like the eights in the deck, a couple big attacks, and the power leech. Like that's all you had to remember. Did they use their one avoid? Like Overpower now and the strategy levels have just gone so through the roof that you have to just anticipate, think about it. But always remember what I tell you. Don't play someone else's deck. Have them play your deck. What does my deck do? How do I accomplish this? What is my path to victory through those four characters across the table, that battle site, that home base, and that mission set? I am going to win this game. How do I do that? That's where I want your mind to get to, and that's how you play like a pro. Hold advantage anytime you can. You know, holding the advantage in terms of either, the card counts on your advantage or the pressure via KO. Hold those advantages, push them, know when to fold, know when it's advantageous for you to do those sort of things as well. I think we have a couple minutes. I'm going to open it up, my friends. I hope you really enjoyed that. I actually really looked forward to this. I spent a lot of time sort of thinking that through and how I would sort of like approach someone to just get in the mindset of what I do when I play in a game of Overpower. And though that may not per se help you with any deck building or anything along those lines, I think this really is going to bring you another level in terms of your gameplay. And again, experience, experience, experience. So, any questions, throw them up now. Um, okay. We got, what is the minimum net venture you would need for you to use your OPD from your battle site? I'm not fully understanding that question. I think you're referencing like what would I venture for me to have to pull my big boy car out of my battle site. I think that's the gist of it. Obviously, when it comes to an OPD like that, you're not just using it in a one venture scenario. You're using it more in a situation where it's beneficial to you. Your OPD from your battle site again is going to be, how is my deck playing? What's my path to victory? It might be in a moment where you have ventured one, but that moment is the moment that's necessary to win and your path to victory. You're going to have to find out those things. Now, I would say if you have something like a lock off one per deck, to not just frivolously throw it away, like knowing that you have that in your deck and then staying in a round because you know you have that, and you sort of just throwing it in the middle of a round when you've only bet one or even two and just sort of wasting it instead of a beneficial moment later in the game. Those are the things you're going to have to really think of. But obviously, when it's a one per deck and you're pushing it, you're venturing off it unless you know it's not going to go through or go through. Um, Question: how do you analyze who is the best character to attack at the start of the game? So, in that respect, I think what you're doing is you're breaking it back down. What is my deck trying to do? Am I trying to get powerful specials through on you? Then I'm going to go for any of your characters that are going to halter that. GAs from the Sentinels or AOs from, Scarlet Witch or whatever the scenario may be. That would be my scenario there. Are you, hindering me through Teamworks? Do I see you're playing a mono 8? Can I sort of destroy your deck construction through killing your 1/8 character? These are the things that I think you should think about ultimately when you're breaking down those sort of questions and thoughts when you're looking across the table. What's my deck trying to do? Not what's the scariest looking character over there, that's going to do the most damage. Because guess what? Sometimes you can defend a bunch of things from a really big character, or you have a dual negator, so Starjammers doesn't look that scary, but they're playing a mono 8 character, so you go kill the mono 8 character. Those are things that, you know, you will get through experience. However, always asking yourself those questions. What am I trying to do? How is my path to victory going to happen through those 4 characters? What do I need to accomplish to make sure they can't beat me? We're going to take one last question here. When facing off against a double negator deck, what might your strategy be for who to target? Wow. Um, the third guy, not the 2 negators. Again, what's your deck trying to do? If you have a bunch of specials you're trying to push through, you're probably not going to get to push through too many. So you're going to have to play more of a style of game where you're going to have to understand you're going to have to play elusive. You're going to have to, play this special hoping that they negate it. And then, you can sort of push through this more powerful special later, or play the powerful special first because you actually want the less special to hit because you want it for venture or whatever the scenario may be in that thought. So that's a tough one. I mean, when you have a dual negator, if you're trying to push through specials, you're in a bad spot. If you're looking across the table and you see dual negators and you have a teamwork rolling deck, they're in a very tough spot. I assure you that. So keep thinking overpower, deck building, and getting to the top of the mountain. This has been Marcel. You are watching the OverPower Mountain Livecast. Thank you so much. Subscribe, like, share, leave a comment on what you thought of this episode and, things that you might think about in terms of before a game or in the middle of a game or other things like that. So tune in next week. I have a really interesting episode next week. I'm not going to spoil it yet, but we're going to sort of look at overpower, a different angle of overpower that a lot of us don't necessarily think about, but I think a lot of us are. So have a great day. See you soon, friends.